The memorial hall fell silent as Commander Thek-Var of the Galactic Educational Consortium stood before 200 instructors from 47 worlds. His tentacles curled with barely contained frustration. "Let me understand this correctly," Thek-Var said, his voice tight with disbelief. "You have been teaching human cadets for 6 cycles now, yes?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled crowd. "And in that time not one of you has successfully extracted a single coherent account of how their species survived the Vornex swarm, the collapse of Titan Station, or the Kellis Plague." His skin flushed purple with exasperation. "These are the most significant survival events in recent galactic history." Instructor Mirror-12, a crystalloid from Sector 9, raised one faceted limb. "Commander, we have tried every pedagogical approach. Direct questioning, casual conversation, formal interviews, even recreational settings with what they call beverages. And," the Thek-Var demanded. "They simply refuse to elaborate," Mirror-12 said, her light patterns dimming with confusion. "One human, Lieutenant Marcus Webb, told me, and I quote, 'Ma'am, I'd rather not jinx it.'" The Thek-Var's secondary eyes blinked rapidly. "Jinx it? Jinx what, exactly? The events have already occurred." "That's what I said." Mirror-12's voice rose to a frequency that made several instructors wince. But he just smiled, that peculiar showing of teeth they do, and said talking about survival was, quote, "tempting fate," unquote. A Vorthian instructor named Krelzon slithered forward. "Commander, if I may, I have observed similar behavior. I asked Sergeant Nora Feng to describe how she survived 15 days in a damaged escape pod with no food synthesizer. Do you know what she told me?" The Thek-Var waited, though his patience was wearing dangerously thin. She said, "Professor Krelzon, sir, I'd really prefer not to talk about it. Don't want to tempt the universe, you know." Krelzon's vocal sac deflated. "When I pressed for details," she added, "bad luck follows those who brag." Then she left. Just left. The room erupted in similar accounts. Each instructor had a story about human reticence, human superstition, human refusal to properly document their improbable survival rates. The Thek-Var raised a primary tentacle for silence. "This is unacceptable. How are we supposed to prepare future students for crisis scenarios if the only species that consistently survives those scenarios won't explain their methods?" "Perhaps," suggested Instructor Yalkor, a methodical Quintarian, "we should observe them in actual survival situations." Every being in the room turned to stare at Yalkor. "Absolutely not," the Thek-Var said flatly. "The ethics board would have my commission. We don't create dangerous situations just to observe responses. Then we wait," Yalkor replied calmly. "Dangerous situations around humans seem to generate themselves with remarkable frequency." The Thek-Var couldn't argue with that logic, irritating as it was. 3 weeks later, fate, the universe, or perhaps some sardonic cosmic entity with a twisted sense of humor, provided an opportunity. The training vessel, Meridian-IV, lost primary power during a routine navigation exercise in the Kelmar asteroid belt. Not ideal. Then the backup systems failed. Decidedly worse. Then the emergency beacon shorted out, and the life support started a countdown that nobody wanted to hear. The Thek-Var found himself sealed in the command deck with 3 other instructors and 4 human cadets. The deck's independent oxygen supply gave them approximately 42 hours before things became unpleasant. Cadet Jason Reeves, a lanky human with perpetually messy hair, immediately began pulling panels off the walls. "Cadet," Thek-Var barked. "What are you doing? Standard protocol is to await rescue while conserving energy." "With respect, sir," Jason said, not stopping his work. "Standard protocol assumes someone knows we're in trouble. Our beacon's dead, and we're in a debris field that scrambles sensors. We're going to have to fix this ourselves." Cadet Lina Okoye was already crawling into an access tunnel that Thek-Var would have sworn was too narrow for human physiology. "Reeves, I'm seeing the power relay. It's completely fried. We'll need to reroute through secondary conduits." "On it," called Cadet Tom Briggs. who had somehow acquired a toolkit from somewhere and was now rewiring a console with steady hands. "Stop," the Thek-Var commanded. "You are not authorized to perform repairs on primary ship systems." All three humans paused and looked at him. The fourth cadet, Amma Sokolov, spoke gently. "Commander, I understand this violates procedure, but if we don't try, we're dead. Permission to potentially survive." The Quintarian instructor, Yal-Kor, touched Thek-Var's shoulder plate. "Let them work. I am curious." Against every instinct screaming at him, Thek-Var nodded. The humans moved like a well-rehearsed dance troupe. Jason coordinated from the main panel, calling out technical specifications. Lena wormed through spaces that should have required dislocating joints. Tom's fingers flew across rewiring with the precision of a surgical automaton. Amma monitored oxygen levels and calculated consumption rates, redirecting what little power they had to essential systems. "Don't suppose anyone brought snacks?" Tom asked casually while elbow deep in a power coupling. "Dude, seriously," Jason laughed. "That strange human bark of amusement. We're potentially dying and you're thinking about food." "I think better when I'm eating," Tom replied defensively. "Also, I skipped lunch." "You always skip lunch," Lena called from inside the wall. "Your meal timing is a disaster," says the person who had coffee for breakfast. "Coffee is a food group." The Thek-Var stared at the bickering humans, then at Yal-Kor. "They're joking, while repairing critical systems, under threat of death." "Fascinating," Yal-Kor murmured, recording everything on a personal datapad. Hours passed. The oxygen counter ticked downward. The humans worked, joked, argued about music preferences, and somehow maintained focus despite the casual conversation. "Got it?" Lena emerged from the access tunnel, her uniform torn and face smudged with lubricant. Powers rerouted. "Jason, try bringing auxiliary online." Jason pressed a sequence. Nothing happened. He tried again. Still nothing. "Come on," he whispered, and Thek-Var realized with shock that the human was speaking to the ship itself. "Don't do this. Not today, please." The lights flickered, dimmed, then steadied. "Yes." Tom punched the air. "Auxiliary power at 18%. That's enough for basic comms." Amma was already at the communications console, broadcasting distress signal on all frequencies. Anyone within 2 light hours should pick it up. "Nicely done, team," Jason said, high-fiving each human in turn, that peculiar hand-slapping ritual they performed. The Thek-Var found his voice. "That was you just? How did you know how to do all that?" The 4 humans exchanged glances. "Standard training?" Amma offered. "Nobody trained you to rewire a Quintarian power relay through Vorthian conduits using Terran tools." Thek-Var's voice went up 3 octaves. "I mean, not specifically," Jason admitted, "but the principles are similar, and we just kind of figured it out." "Figured it out?" the Thek-Var repeated faintly. "It's not that impressive, sir," Lena said quickly. "Really, we just got lucky. Could easily have failed." "Lucky," Yal-Kor said slowly. "You believe luck saved you?" "Sure," Tom shrugged. "Right place, right tools, right knowledge. That's all luck is, isn't it?" "And skill," Emma added. "But mostly luck. We definitely don't want to oversell it." "Why not?" the Thek-Var demanded. "You just performed repairs that our engineering department said would require dock time and specialized equipment. Why are you minimizing your accomplishment?" The humans went quiet. That strange, uncomfortable silence that Thek-Var had learned meant they were about to say something that would make no sense whatsoever. "Sir," Jason said carefully, "if we make a big deal about surviving this, the universe might decide to test us harder next time. It's better to just acknowledge we got through it and move on. The universe doesn't decide anything." Thek-Var's tentacles thrashed. "It's not sentient." "Probably not," Tom agreed, "but why risk it?" "This is insane." "Respectfully, sir," Emma said, "humans have been surviving on this philosophy for thousands of years. Maybe it's not scientific, but it works for us." A rescue ship arrived 6 hours later, guided by their signal. As the crew evacuated, the Thek-Var pulled Yal-Kor aside. "Did you get all of that recorded?" "Every word, every action," Yal-Kor confirmed. "Good," Because I'm going to write a paper on human survival psychology, and nobody is going to believe me without evidence. Yalkor's mouth parts curved in his species equivalent of a smile. Commander, I don't think a paper will help. To understand humans, one must simply accept that they survive through a combination of skill, adaptability, and refusing to acknowledge how impressive that is. That's not a survival strategy. That's superstition. Perhaps, or perhaps their ancestors, who bragged about survival, didn't live long enough to pass on their genes, while the cautious ones did, natural selection favoring humility in the face of chaos. The Thek-Var considered this. That's actually a terrifying thought. Most things about humans are, once you examine them closely. Back at the academy, the Thek-Var called another assembly of instructors. He played the recordings from the Meridian-IV incident. The room sat in stunned silence. So, the Thek-Var said finally, we now have documented proof of human survival capabilities, and we still have no idea how to teach other species to replicate it. Because it cannot be replicated, Meridian-IV said softly. That wasn't training, that was instinct, adaptation. A species-wide trait developed over millennia of barely surviving their own planet before they even reached the stars. An instructor from Helios raised a claw. What do we do with this information? The Thek-Var looked at the frozen image on the screen, 4 humans calmly repairing a ship while oxygen ran low, joking about food and music while death counted down in digital numbers. We add a new course, he said slowly. Human survival methodologies. And we make it very clear to students that they should never, under any circumstances, ask a human why they survived something. Because the answer will always be, we don't want to tempt luck. The assembly dissolved into discussion, debate, academic excitement. Yalkor approached the Thek-Var as the room emptied. You know they'll just do it again, yes? Survive something impossible, then refuse to explain it. I know, Thek-Var sighed. But at least now we're documenting it. Future generations can puzzle over human survival traits long after we're gone. Assuming humans don't find a way to survive that too. The Thek-Var's tentacles drooped. I hate that you're probably right. 3 months after the Meridian-IV incident, Thek-Var's new course, Human Survival Methodologies, had become the most popular elective at the Galactic Educational Consortium. It also had the highest dropout rate, because every student who took it came away more confused than when they started. The problem, the Thek-Var realized, was that humans kept surviving things, and they kept refusing to explain how. Commander, Instructor Meridian-IV appeared at his office entrance, her crystalloid structure practically vibrating with agitation. We have another situation. The Thek-Var's tentacles went rigid. Please tell me it doesn't involve humans. It involves 12 humans, actually. Training expedition to Voltar-Three. The supply shuttle crashed in the northern wilderness. Rescue teams estimate 4 days to reach them. The humans have provisions for maybe 18 hours. And the Thek-Var felt his crew metaphors shifting toward resignation, purple. They just sent a message. They're fine. They've built shelters, found water, and apparently made something they call stew from local vegetation. Local vegetation that our xenobiology reports classify as potentially toxic to 70% of known species. Yes. Well, Meridian-IV's lights flickered with what might have been amusement. The humans tested it first on their medic cadet Kwame Ose, who volunteered to, quote, see if it would kill him, unquote. When he didn't die after an hour, they declared it safe. The Thek-Var pressed his primary tentacle against his head ridge. That's not science. That's gambling with biology. Nevertheless, they're all alive and apparently comfortable. One of them, Cadet Rebecca Torres, sent a follow-up message asking if they could get academic credit for, quote, impromptu wilderness survival training, unquote. Absolutely not. We can't encourage this behavior. But even as he said it, Thek-Var knew he was fighting a losing battle. Send a monitoring drone. I want footage for the course materials. The drone footage arrived 6 hours later. The Thek-Var gathered his fellow instructors to watch. The humans had constructed remarkably effective shelters using local materials, woven together with strips torn from their emergency packs. A fire burned cheerfully in a carefully constructed pit. They'd even created a rudimentary filtration system for water using sand, charcoal and fabric. That's actually impressive engineering, Yalkor admitted. Given their limited resources, on screen a human named Diego Alvarez was demonstrating how to identify edible plants to another cadet. See, this one has alternating leaves and no milky sap. On Earth that's usually a good sign. Obviously different planet, different rules, but the principle holds. Usually a good sign. Instructor Krelzon's vocal sac inflated with horror. They're basing survival decisions on usually. Cadet Priya Mehta appeared on screen stirring the notorious stew. Honestly, this isn't half bad. Tastes kind of like mushroom soup if mushrooms were purple and grew on trees. I still think we should have waited longer before everyone ate it, Kwame said, though he was already on his second helping. You're the medic. You survived. Good enough for me. Rebecca laughed. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? Death? Suggested another cadet, Alex Kimura. Well, yeah, but other than that. The entire group laughed. That same inexplicable human response to danger that Thek-Var had witnessed on the Meridian-IV. I need to speak with them, Thek-Var announced suddenly. Patch me through to their communicators. Moments later, Rebecca Torres's face appeared on the screen, firelight flickering behind her. Commander Thek-Var. Enjoying the show, sir? Cadet Torres. I need to understand something. You and your team are stranded on a hostile planet, eating potentially poisonous vegetation, sleeping in improvised shelters, and you're all smiling. Why? Rebecca glanced over her shoulder at her teammates, who had gathered around to listen. Permission to speak freely, sir? Granted. Please. I'm begging you to help me understand. Sir, we're alive. We're together. We've got food, water, fire, and shelter. Yeah, it's not the academy dormitory, but we're managing. What's there to be upset about? The fact that you could die at any moment. Could have died in the shuttle crash, Diego called from off-screen. Didn't. Could have died from the plants. Didn't. Could get eaten by whatever makes those howling sounds at night. Probably won't. Probably. The Thek-Var's voice went up again. We've got watches posted, sir, Kwame added, coming into view. 2 people awake at all times. We're being careful. You tested unknown vegetation on yourself. Someone had to. I'm the medic, so I've got the training to recognize symptoms. Plus I'm the biggest, so I figured I had the best chance if it went wrong. Kwame shrugged as if this was perfectly logical. Priya joined the group. Commander, with respect, you keep looking for some secret technique, some special training. But honestly, we're just doing what makes sense. Stay calm, assess resources, work together, don't give up. That's it. And don't brag about it, Alex added, because the second you think you've got it figured out, that's when everything goes sideways. There it is again. The Thek-Var's tentacles flailed. That's superstition. Why do you all believe this? The humans exchanged those looks again. That wordless communication that Thek-Var had learned meant they were trying to figure out how to explain something they considered obvious. Sir, Rebecca said slowly, has anyone ever told you about the Titanic? The Terran ocean vessel? Yes, I'm familiar. Unsinkable ship struck ice, massive tragedy. Right. They called it unsinkable, made a big deal about how safe it was, how nothing could go wrong, and then everything went wrong. Rebecca's expression grew serious. Humans learn from our mistakes, Commander. We learned that overconfidence kills, that celebrating survival before you're actually safe is dangerous, that the universe or fate, probability or whatever you want to call it, has a sense of irony. So you refuse to acknowledge your capabilities out of fear? Not fear, sir. Respect. We respect the fact that we don't control everything, that luck matters, that confidence is good, but arrogance is deadly. Diego had moved closer to the camera. Every human grows up hearing stories about someone who got too cocky and paid for it. It's baked into our culture. Knock on wood. Don't walk under ladders, don't jinx it. Those are just superstitions. Maybe, Priya agreed. But they keep us humble, they keep us cautious, and caution, sir, keeps us alive. The Thek-Var slumped in his seat. Behind him, the assembled instructors watched in fascinated silence. So you're telling me, Thek-Var said carefully, that the secret to human survival is essentially collective cultural anxiety about the universe punishing pride? When you put it like that, it sounds kind of neurotic, Alex admitted. But yeah, basically. This is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. Probably, sir. Rebecca grinned. But we're still alive, so it seems to work. The rescue team reached the camp 3.5 days later. The humans had not only survived, but thrived. They'd mapped the immediate area, catalogued 15 species of vegetation, set up a water purification system that impressed the rescue team's engineer, and taught themselves to weave baskets from local grass. When asked how they learned basket weaving, Cadet Kimura explained that his grandmother had taught him years ago, and the principles translated surprisingly well. When the Thek-Va pointed out that basket weaving was hardly relevant to Space Academy training, Kimura replied, "You never know what skills you'll need, sir. Better to know weird stuff than wish you did." The incident report crossed the Thek-Va's desk 2 days later. He read it 3 times, then called Yal-Kor to his office. "Read this." He thrust the pad at the Quintarian. "Tell me if I'm losing my mind." Yal-Kor's eye stalks scanned the document. "Yes, I see. They've recommended that the students receive commendations for resourcefulness and adaptability. They ate potentially toxic plants, which turned out to be nutritious and are now being studied for possible agricultural use. The humans found a new food source. By accident. Is it truly an accident if they followed logical procedures? Test small amounts, wait for reactions, proceed with caution." Yal-Kor handed back the pad. "Commander, I believe you're approaching this incorrectly." "How so?" "You keep expecting humans to have a system, a method, a teachable curriculum. But their survival trait isn't something they do, it's something they are. They're a species shaped by a hostile homeworld, limited resources, and thousands of years of barely avoiding extinction. Their caution isn't superstition, it's evolutionary wisdom. Their humor in crisis is a psychological defense mechanism. Their adaptability is genetic memory of ancestors who had to change or die. The Thek-Va absorbed this slowly. "So what you're saying is that we can't teach other species to survive like humans because humans don't really know how they do it either. It's just instinct. Instinct refined by culture, supported by psychology and reinforced by collective memory." "Yes. Then my course is pointless." "Not at all. Your course teaches something equally valuable, that different species have different strengths, that survival isn't one size fits all, that humans survive through adaptability, Quintarians through logic, Vorthians through cooperation, and so on. Understanding this diversity is crucial for mixed species crews." The Thek-Va's tentacles relaxed slightly. "That's actually helpful. Thank you." "You're welcome. Now shall we discuss the 17 human cadets who are currently volunteering to test the new zero-gravity combat training facility that engineering says isn't quite ready yet?" "What? No, absolutely not. That facility has known safety issues. The humans are aware. They want to, quote, help work out the bugs, unquote." The Thek-Va reached for his communicator with a weary tentacle. "Get them out of there immediately." "Already done." They found and reported 6 critical flaws that engineering had missed. The facility is now 3 weeks ahead of its safety certification schedule. There was a long pause. They survived the unsafe facility, found the problems, fixed them, and nobody wants to brag about it, do they? The Thek-Va asked, tiredly. Cadet Reeves said, and I quote, "Just another day, sir. Could have gone worse. Could have gone worse." That's his assessment of nearly dying in a malfunctioning combat facility. "Humans," Yal-Kor said simply, as if that explained everything. And perhaps the Thek-Va thought it did. 6 months later, the Thek-Va stood before the Galactic Educational Consortium's annual conference. His presentation, titled Understanding Human Survival, a Study in Cultural Humility, had drawn the largest audience in conference history. In conclusion, he said, tentacles gesturing at the data behind him, humans survive not because they're stronger, faster or smarter than other species. They survive because they expect to struggle. They prepare for failure. They never ever assume safety. And most importantly, they refuse to celebrate survival until they're absolutely certain they're safe, and sometimes not even then. Commander, an instructor from Helios-IV, called out. You've spent a year studying this. Do you finally understand humans? The Thek-Var's chromatophores shifted through several colors before settling on honest blue. No, but I've learned to accept that I don't need to. Humans will continue to survive impossible situations through a combination of skill, luck, and stubborn refusal to acknowledge how impressive that is, and that's acceptable. Different species, different strengths. Our job is to recognize and respect those differences, not to force every species into the same survival template. The conference hall erupted in appreciative sounds from dozens of species. Later, in the reception area, Jason Reeves approached Thek-Var with a cup of something steaming. Sir? Thought you might like some earth tea, chamomile. It's calming. The Thek-Var accepted the cup cautiously. Thank you, cadet. Tell me something honestly. Do you really believe the universe punishes people for bragging about survival? Jason considered this, his face thoughtful. Sir, I believe the universe is fundamentally indifferent, but I also believe that staying humble keeps you alert. The moment you think you can't be hurt is the moment you stop being careful, and being careful is what keeps you alive. So whether it's real or not, believing it helps. Does that make sense? More than anything else I've heard in the past year, Thek-Var admitted. You're a credit to your species, Cadet Reeves. Just trying not to tempt fate, sir. Jason grinned. Have a good evening. As the human walked away, the Thek-Var sipped his tea and watched the various species mingle. Humans laughing with Vorthians, Quintarians debating with crystalloids, all of them different, all of them surviving in their own way. And if the humans wanted to credit luck instead of skill, well, who was he to argue with 10,000 years of evolutionary success? Somewhere in the crowd, he heard Cadet Torres telling a story. He couldn't make out the words, but he heard the ending clearly. And that's why you never ever say what's the worst that could happen, because the universe is always listening. Laughter followed. Human, Vorthian, Quintarian, all blended together. The Thek-Var's tentacles curled in what his species considered a smile. Perhaps understanding wasn't the point. Perhaps acceptance was enough. And if there was one thing his year of studying humans had taught him, it was that survival came in many forms. Sometimes it looked like careful planning, sometimes it looked like blind luck, and sometimes, just sometimes, it looked like a group of beings too stubborn to die and too superstitious to brag about living. The universe, indifferent or not, would just have to deal with it.